great day, isn't it? I've got some great ideas to share with you today. And it's really going to hit you and blow your mind. We're not talking about a new topic. The topic we're talking about is how to change the subconscious mind. So if you're not familiar with what we're talking about, I'm going to walk you through it. I'm going to give you a background so that you understand where are we coming from. So let's look at what are the aspects of mind. The first thing we've got to understand is that we have a conscious mind which is creative. The conscious mind basically is about 5% of what we think. This is the mind that questions. This is the mind that analyzes. This is the mind that comes up with new ideas. This is the mind that studies and picks up new things and gets understanding. This is the mind that is always looking at life differently, right? But it's 5%. Then we have the subconscious mind. That's 95%. This mind is habitual. It takes whatever's in your subconscious and it creates your experience, period. It doesn't judge. It doesn't analyze. It doesn't say, I know what's best for me. I know what's best for them. It does none of those things. It simply creates the image that it has of your life. So what makes up the subconscious mind? Every thought that you've ever had. Every thought. I'm going to put that into context in just a little bit. Not only does it take every thought that we've ever had, but it takes everything that our eyes have observed that we didn't think about, but everything that we observe. Like right now, I may be looking at Angelo, but my eyes are taking in everyone here, and that is stored in my mind. So when we say that our subconscious mind is just our thoughts, no, it's not that. It's so much more than that. It's everything that we observe. So think about that. Really put that into perspective in your life. Where have you been in your life? What have you been focusing on? And you may just be focusing on a little aspect of a situation, but your mind is taking in everything that's stored. That's creating an energy. It's creating a frequency. The frequency that we create within creates our experience. The two minds together create our mental atmosphere, which creates our life experience. We like to talk about the sum total of everything that we've experienced is a mental atmosphere. It's a frequency. We are energy. Pure and simple. We are energy. The frequency that we are puts out, and anything that's like that frequency comes back and we hear it. If something, we could be focusing on debt, that's a frequency. Debt is a frequency. And all these abundant opportunities come to us because we're focusing on debt. We're not a frequency to the abundance. Therefore, we never get the abundance because we're so worried about debt. You see how that works? It's really fascinating because the abundant ideas are there for us just like they're there for the people who are using them to create unbelievable wealth. But they're tapped into abundance. They're not tapped into debt. If you are the age of 45, you've had approximately 1 billion thoughts at this time. Think about that. Really contemplate. I did my age. I'm 68. I have 1.5 billion thoughts in my subconscious mind. 1.5 billion thoughts. Now, if I do 24 affirmations, how is that going to affect my 1.5 billion? Goose egg. Are you getting this? You can bring up, like I was in Peru and I did ayahuasca and it brought up all this subconscious mind, okay? Brought up all this subconscious mind. Did I do anything to change the makeup of my mind, or did I just refocus on what happened to me in the past? I became aware of the patterns that were in my life, right? The patterns that were holding me back. I became aware of the patterns. You understand? Awareness of a pattern. Does that change the pattern? No. It's still 1.5 billion 100. The work is changing the patterns. Because remember what we said earlier, the subconscious mind is habitual. It's habits. And so if you know that you're conscious 5% of the time, you've got to be really working that 5%, and we're going to talk about that more. If we think, talk, and act like the majority of people in the world, we're going to have their experiences. Why? Because what are we putting into our mind? Those thoughts and experience that have that. So when I'm looking at someone, let's take Jim Rohn. Jim Rohn is probably the father of self-help. He taught Tony Robbins. He taught Mark Victor Hansen. I've been to see Jim Rohn when he was alive 3 times. I took my son Stephen to see Jim Rohn. Jim Rohn was actually absolutely incredible. And he talked about it. He says, it is work to be wealthy. It is work to be healthy. And he says, but we have the power to do the work. And he says this, very, very, very few people do the work. We go around chasing modalities. We go around trying to find quick fixes. I'm not going to lie to you. When I went to Peru and did ayahuasca, in the back of my subconscious mind, I was hoping there'd be a quick fix. I was hoping that when I could hallucinate and have all this stuff come out, I was hoping that would change my subconscious mind. It did not. I've tried just about every modality out there, and the only thing I understand that works is a persistent and consistent spiritual practice that is anchored and focused in where you want to be and what you want to experience. Without a persistent and consistent practice, nothing will change. But how many times do we get started in a practice and something happens and we go, I'll just let that go. Let's use the gym. How many times do people go to the gym in January? Yep, gonna get buff this year. Gonna get that bikini or that Speedo body. I'll tell you, it was really embarrassing to me. When my kids got 15 and 13, we went to Hawaii, where we went every year to visit my parents, and I go on the beach. I'd always wear a Speedo. I worked at it. Don't look at me like that, Alice. You would like it. I'm telling you, Alice, now look at me. Picture me in a Speedo. I know you're smiling. You can't stop seeing the Speedo, can you? See, the power of the mind is absolutely incredible. And my son said to me, Dad, stop wearing the Speedo. It's embarrassing us. Well, I didn't want to go to the beach every day knowing my sons were embarrassed by their fathers, so I moved into traditional suits. I conformed, didn't I? I allowed their race consciousness to interview mine. When I go to Hawaii next time, I will not take them. I get to dress anywhere I want, don't I? And you won't be there. So if you want to know what I look like in a Speedo, imagine it now. And this is really big when you get this. Just because we understand something doesn't mean it's changed in our subconscious mind. This is the biggest mistake I have made, and this is the biggest mistake that I see other people making, is that they understand something. We understand something, and we think we've changed. No. Why? There's 1.5 billion thoughts out there thinking differently. That hasn't changed. Do you realize the baby that's 7 years old each year has 22.9 million thoughts, a baby. So that's about 150 million thoughts that baby from 0 to 7 has gotten into their mind, and they have not consciously chosen those thoughts because they're in theta state, meaning they're observing everything, so there is no discernment. So whatever that baby, that young child has observed, those first 150 million thoughts are now going to be the basis of their entire life. Do you get that? And we wonder why our kids are screwed up. And you're wondering why right now that the millennials, 50% of the millennials will not get married. Do you hear that? That's a statistic. 50% of the millennials. Why? They watch their parents. How many kids, when you were raised, how many people here saw their parents have a great relationship? Well, my son Steven's got his hand up. Well, thank you for that. But I didn't see that. I saw a very, very, very dysfunctional relationship. So think about that. Here's the other aspect. Not only are 50% of the millennials not going to get married, 50% are never going to have children. And it's a conscious choice. That's not good or bad. But that's a real difference from when I was growing up. What's the other thing that's changing out there? Home ownership. The trend of home ownership is going down. There's a consciousness about that. So you've got to sort of beware what's happening around us. What's the consciousness around us? Right now, there's a consciousness in the United States that if we weren't sending jobs over to India, to China and that, we would have those jobs still in the United States. That's what we bought into, isn't it? That's what all the politicians are talking about. And yet, if you go beneath that, you would understand that artificial intelligence is what's eliminating jobs in this country. If you walk into when my first job was being in an assembly plant, I was in Dodge Maynham Tramick. I was with Chryslers, and they produced 120 cars an hour. And every station on that line had a person doing things, screwing in bolts, putting on fenders, doing all that stuff. When you walk down the line in an assembly plant, it's all robots. We didn't ship those jobs overseas. We created artificial intelligence and robots to do them. What's going to be happening into the future? As you research it, you understand call centers disappearing. Artificial intelligence can handle it. A radiologist will disappear. Artificial intelligence can handle it. Think about retail stores. You're seeing all these retail stores that are open. Why are they closing? Amazon. And that's going to become greater and greater. So all those jobs are disappearing. The question is where are you being unique that you're providing a service that people want and people will pay for? So you've got to come outside of what maybe you were going. Do you realize that only 30% of the population is going to college? Less than half of the population that are graduating. Half of the people that graduate cannot get a job in any type of college field that they were in. They're taking jobs that are below college education. So what I'm doing is I'm saying to you, think outside the box with your conscious thought, because you've got a lot of unconscious things. Like one of the things I had, my sons had to go to college. My oldest son went for 4 years. Never finished. That really bothered me. My youngest son went, got a master's degree. Is one better than the other? No. One fit the mold and the idea of what I thought better than the other, but it's not better. Do you really start to understand that? We'd be so much better, we've got one politician talking about free college. Free college for what, 30% of the people? What about the other 70%? Wouldn't it be better if we did something smart and said, why don't we start trade schools? Because artificial intelligence will not eliminate plumbers, electricians, and HCAV people and things of that nature. Can't eliminate that. Why wouldn't we send our students? Do you realize what a plumber makes? My friend Scott owns his own plumbing company. We've been friends for 36 years. He's got his own plumbing. He's got houses over here, places up in Colorado. He's got every toy in the world. He's financially set as a plumber. But people say he's a plumber. We put a stigma on things because it's not white collar. White collar is going to disappear real fast. Accountants, going to disappear. Tax people, going to disappear. Why? Artificial intelligence. It can do it so much easier, more fast, and more effectively than we can. Data is the key to the future, and how you can use that data, that's something you want to be aware of. The key question you must ask yourself is, do you want to be like everybody else, or do you want to excel and live an extraordinary life? You've got to make a decision there. Do you want a life like everybody else? If you're in a particular type of group, look at the group you're in and say, what is their experience? Because when I'm in that group, I'm a vibration to that experience. Therefore, my experience is going to be partially influenced by the group I hang with. You can't get away from that. So how do you change the subconscious mind? The first thing is hypnosis. Hypnosis is the way we first came into this world. You realize hypnosis doesn't mean someone going tick, 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 follow the ball, tick, 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 tick. Becca, you're hypnotized. Cluck like a chicken. You should have just clucked. That would have been funnier. I should have set that up beforehand. Hypnosis means getting yourself energetically. You can do this. You can get into the theta state. The theta state is the hypnotic state. If you want to know how to do it, go to Lee Wolak on YouTube and click on the 8-hour video out there on how to reprogram your mind. That's got affirmations that are playing for 8 hours, and it's done to the music and the frequency of theta. We have several people in our community that have started this, that are doing this all night. They pop in earbuds and they let that play quietly in their thing. They're actually reprogramming their mind. I'm actually looking for a hypnotist that I can partner with. I've not found that person. I've interviewed 3 and I've not been happy. I'm looking for someone that will work with me in hypnosis, work with me so that I can use hypnosis and pick a small area of life and say, can I change by implanting the thought deep in my own subconscious mind? But the key thing here is, remember, there's 1.5 billion thoughts out there, right? So I want to have the biggest impact. I have to pick one area and really work at that one area to change the subconscious in that one area. When I get that to work, then I move to another small area. You see, you can't multitask in changing your subconscious mind. You can't go and take your whole mind and do it. It's too big a job. I got 1.5 billion thoughts. But if I've got 1 million thoughts, I can work with that a lot more than 1.5 billion. You see where I'm coming from? So we've got to pick and choose what's most important for us. Here's the one that they talk about, repetitive thinking. The more you think repetitively, you create a habit. And that habit becomes whether you're aware of it or not. And when you can create a habit, that's what? It's like all of a sudden it's like a wheel that's constantly feeding your subconscious mind. It's feeding it, it's feeding it, it's feeding it. And if it's constantly feeding it, you're going to change the subconscious mind gradually. Gradually it'll change. We change the subconscious mind the same way we learned it. We learned it in theta state when we were children, and we learned it through habits of thinking that we have bought into, and we've created those habits. So to change it, we have to learn new in the same way. Affirmations work because they're creating a new habit of thinking, and that habit changes what is in our subjective mind. But it's not doing a couple affirmations, it's actually living a life that is an affirmation. If you're saying relationships are easy, and then you're out with your boyfriends or your girlfriends, you say, it's a bitch being married. You've negated all the affirmations. Why? You went back to old thoughts. You went back to your habits of thinking, didn't you? Anytime you're saying, I'm going in this direction, but all of a sudden you're with a group of people and you turn in this direction, you've now nullified all the gains. You've been put into your mind that which is not what you want. That's where awareness comes in. You really have to be aware. What are you saying? What are you thinking? That's work. Affirmations without disciplined action is living in a delusion. This is Jim Rohn. I should have put it there. But I'm telling you, that's Jim Rohn right there. A lot of people affirm, but their actions are not aligned with what they're affirming. And they say affirmations don't work. They're living in delusion because they don't really understand and they've not yet committed to a process to change their lives. Most people in the world are living in delusion. In order to change, we must be willing to commit ourselves to a life of change by taking charge of our own life. Only we can change our lives. When I say we, I mean me or you. I'm not saying collectively. Collectively, we can support. But the change is a decision that I make or a decision that you make. And when we make a decision, what we're saying to the universe is that there is no other possibility for me to go in any other direction. Let me tell you about race consciousness just a little bit. Years ago, I cut out the news. Why? Nothing good happening in the news. That's a consciousness that's feeding. It's not good. But someone said to me, try this Apple News. It's got all perspectives. So I installed the app on my phone, my iPad, and my computer. And what I realized on Monday was that I was accessing that app 3-4 times a day, 5-10 minutes each time. What was I putting into my mind? I'd forgotten what I was focused on. So what did I do? I deleted the app. And you know what happened? A lot of the thoughts that I got today that I'm sharing with you came because I had time that I wasn't focused on that. When you take that type of stuff, that energy away, you become more creative. You become able to see more things because you're not feeding the machine the old ideas over and over and over again. It's a Herculean task to change the subconscious mind. But it's the power that we have to create. There's no other power. Think about it like this. If you're going to lose weight, it's a simple concept. Can you say, I'm going to drop 10 pounds today? And is that real? Not in the least. Because why? Because there's all these billions, 50 trillion cells in the body. You can't change that fast. Think about that. The mind has how many? 1.5 billion. The body has 50 plus trillion cells in it. So if you want to change your health, you've got to change 50 trillion cells. That's going to change gradually. They say that the body changes for the most part, most of it, about once a year. 90% of it changes every year. So if you focus on health and you do healthy eating, you do healthy exercise, you change your focus and you think healthy thoughts, you relieve the stress in your life, over the course of the year, you will change your body. Over the course of the year, if you focus healthy, you'll lose 0.5 pound a week. That's reasonable, isn't it? 0.5 pound a week is like, yeah, I'm changing my thoughts just a little bit, 0.5 pound a week. If you're 200 pounds, 0.5 pound a week is not a big amount. Then over a year, what have you lost? 26 pounds. How big is 26 pounds? It's like this. Think about that. If you took this off of you, what would you look like? I'd be emaciated. My wife, she would be emaciated. But some of us, we have opportunities to change our subconscious mind. The question I've got to ask is, do you really know what you want? And is what you want enough for you to make a decision to consciously choose and begin the process and do the work for yourself? Because until you decide, everything remains the same. Let's pray. I want to thank you for joining us today. I'm so grateful that you took your time to watch or listen to this message. If you found this message beneficial, I would ask that you go to our website, agapecsl.com. Once there, click on the donate button and experience the joy of conscious and purposeful giving. Or if you would like, text your gift by simply dialing 972-532-6976. It is through your gifts that we are able to bring this message to you in the world. I would ask that if you like this message, to please subscribe to my YouTube channel under my name, Lee Wolak. Again, I want to thank you for joining me in the Agape community as we learn how to better self-love through conscious living.